Richard, thank you for joining us. The launch of the Premier League, one of the biggest sporting leagues and products in the world. So, first question is, how do you go about making it even bigger and better?
Well, it gets a bit bigger and better every year, I think. I've just come back from a pre-season tour with the Premier League, 6 clubs in the US. We sold 250,000 tickets for 9 matches. It's unbelievable. So it is getting a bit bigger. We're always trying to improve it. Got a couple of tweaks to the competition this year. And again, that's just about trying to make it better for fans, better to watch. But obviously, we remain the same with 380 games in August and May. The Premier League creates its own stories and narratives that keep people watching it.
You mentioned those tweaks there. There are some fans concerned by what they saw to start the EFL season. All but 2 matches going to 100 minutes, one almost 23 minutes added on. Already some high-profile opponents in the shape of Pep Guardiola, Rafa Varane of Manchester United, talking about the pressures on players' physical and mental health. What are your thoughts on the changes?
Well, they're coming from FIFA. So FIFA via IFAB have given guidance that they want to see what happened in the World Cup now played out through domestic competitions, which is for referees to take a more literal approach to time added on. And what they really want to see is the time played actually improved. The Premier League's on average about 98.5 minutes. So 100-minute matches aren't that much of an adjustment, if you like, with 55 minutes of playing time. So we want to see that playing time going up. We want to see a sensible adjustment to it, but also we're looking at cracking down on the sort of causes of time wasting, if you like. So expect to see more players booked if they kick the ball away at free kicks, if they stand in the way of it, if they take over a minute to take a throw in with 10 minutes to go, if they're 1-0 up. Those things will be penalised, and that time will be added on, which is why you're going to see slightly longer games. I said I hope it's a sensible adjustment, and that fans take to it, because in the end, we want fans to enjoy watching Premier League matches.
But with longer matches expected, is it right that we have weekend games kicking off at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. on a Sunday, especially when you think about the travel implications for fans?
We're talking about a small number of minutes. And again, I say, if the time wasting issues get resolved, you should see it balance out over time. So we're going to wait and see how this works, not just in English football, but around the world. And so we'll watch it with interest and keep a watching brief on it. And on the points made by the players and managers recently, I think they're making a wider point, which is about how many matches and how much time players are being asked to play matches. And I think they have a point there, because obviously the Premier League domestic competitions aren't changing in size and shape at all. The Premier League, as I said, remains a 380-game competition. It's European competitions and global competitions under the FIFA banner that are getting bigger and asking those top strata of players to play even more games than they already are. And there is a tipping point, and the balance between domestic and international competitions needs to be properly maintained. As we know, next year UEFA competitions will be longer, more group stage matches in the Champions League, for example. We've got a new competition, the Club World Cup, coming in the summer of 25, and the 26 World Cup is going to be a bit longer because there are more group stage matches, because again it's being expanded. Good for global football, you would say, but again for the players it's additional playing time.
On the point of 8 p.m. kickoffs on a Saturday, 7 p.m. on a Sunday though, is that right for fans of the Premier League?
Well, they aren't normal slots. So we have matches on Friday nights occasionally. They're displacement slots really. Saturday at 12:30, Saturday at 5:30. 2 normal slots on a Sunday and Monday night, and midweek games are where you're going to see majority of Premier League matches positioned and broadcast. Quite recently, for player welfare reasons, we brought in the slight twist, which was that if you're playing in Europe on a Wednesday and you were selected to play at Saturday 12:30, you could opt to play at a different time. That's where you see Saturday matches playing. So again, it's all a balance.
The Times reported last week that the Premier League had shut down over 600,000 illegal streams last season. And I think it begged the question on accessibility to viewing games as part of it as well, especially now in the cost of living crisis. This time of year we've got our callers into talkSPORT saying wherever they go on holiday they're finding it easier to watch football than when they're here. Is that right for fans of football in England?
Well, again, it's another question about balance. We have historically been supporters of Article 48, UEFA Article 48, which fans don't know too much about, but essentially it creates blocked hours on a Saturday afternoon between 2:15 and 5:15 when no football is televised in this country. That supports participation, it supports attendance at matches in that traditional slot, and we're going to continue to support it for the foreseeable future. So it means that fewer matches are televised. We're up to 200 now that get televised in the Premier League out of the 380. And of course, if you're in the US, you can watch all of them if you have the time and the inclination. And our next broadcast tender is slated for Q4 of this year, and we've got some decisions to make about how many matches we put into that process as well. So I think again, it's all about balance.
Is it less about the number of matches though, and maybe the number of broadcasters that fans need to pay for? You think of Sky, TNT Sports, there's Amazon as well over the course of a Premier League season.
The Premier League's domestic television rights are regulated in the sense that we have a no single buyer rule, which means that more than one broadcaster has to have access to Premier League matches, and so that will continue.
Can I ask you about the Saudi Pro League, making big headlines at the moment, huge names in football moving there, massive investment as well. Do you see them as a possible future threat to the popularity of the Premier League?
I've been asked this question a lot, and I think it's too early to say really. At this moment in time, I know how difficult it is to. It's a very competitive world running football competitions. There's a huge struggle for eyeballs across the world, and it's not just about players and managers. A whole host of things goes into creating a competition that people want to buy into, want to follow, want to pay money to subscribe to, want to pick a team and support them for life. That's what we want at the Premier League. The Premier League stands on the history and traditions of 150 years of league football in this country. We're selling out 98.7% of tickets. We've got home and away fans. We've got that sort of unique atmosphere and fast-paced football. And here we are at Brighton watching the under-21s play. It's a blend of the best stars and also homegrown talent that goes into making all the ingredients to make a really enticing league. So I think it's a really hard journey for anyone to propel it by mere expenditure alone. And obviously the Premier League is a £6 billion economy, and all that money gets reinvested back into the competition on and off the pitch. And all strong competitions in the end need revenue streams, not just cost bases. But obviously Saudi Pro League clubs are entitled to buy players like any other club.
What about something Jurgen Klopp mentioned, the end of the Saudi transfer window being 3 weeks after the European one, not just the Premier League, of course. Is there something that can be done to maybe stop English clubs being left behind by needing to sell after a period in which they are no longer able to buy? I'm old enough to remember the days when there weren't transfer windows and clubs could buy players at any point during the season. So I think transfer windows are a good thing. And the question is, do the current transfer windows rules work? They're governed by FIFA. Essentially, no league has more than 16 weeks, but it's up to you to choose how to deploy them. You've got a summer transfer window and a mid-season transfer window, and obviously the Premier League, generally speaking, has been aligned with the other big European leagues, not with anyone else. And we've seen this to some extent before with the Chinese Super League from yesteryear, which came and went really as a force in the international player market. So it's something we need to keep an eye on. I do want to ask you, I guess, a Saudi-related question when it comes to Newcastle United. You'll be aware that Liv Golf declared in US court documents that the PIF, 80% owners of Newcastle United, were a body of the Saudi state, which kind of contradicted the assurances that we were told were given by Newcastle when they purchased the club. When MPs asked you about this earlier this year, you said you couldn't give a comment on that, but I do want to ask just, are you confident, can you tell fans that you are confident that there is no involvement of the Saudi state in the running of Newcastle United?
Well, I think I'm going to repeat what I probably said in the select committee, which is I can't really comment on it. I think the question you're asking is the Premier League looking at those documents, those comments, and we don't normally comment at all on
said,
investigations.
Yeah, that's what you said at the time.
Until a point of charge.
Yeah.
And we're not at that stage yet. So there's nothing I can really say about it. And obviously we are fully aware of those documents.
Yeah, I think for fans, transparency is the big thing. I don't think they want to know if you're investigating Newcastle, but they would, I think, be happy to know that you're confident that there's no issues there.
Well, if they take those assurances very seriously, so fans can be confident in that.
The Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, he will be visiting this autumn. Would you be okay with him being welcomed into a Premier League stadium?
That's a hypothetical situation. I didn't know that. You're giving me new information. So it's up to individual clubs to invite whoever they wish to Premier League matches. We've never governed who comes to Premier League matches.
And finally, Manchester United, a big piece of news this week will be their decision on the future of Mason Greenwood. They've obviously held an internal investigation. Are the Premier League aware of the details of that investigation? Are you confident there's been a rigorous process carried out by Manchester United?
It is a club decision, ultimately, and it's not something the Premier League gets actively involved with. Obviously, we have rules and regulations with regards to safeguarding, which are rigorously enforced. But it's up to Manchester United to make their own decision about Mason Greenwood.
Okay, Richard, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
talkSPORT.